I can pass it down.
What do you have? 1 minute?
Mhm.
Are you hiding?
Yeah, I'm just gonna be under the
Yeah,
table.
look at this, it's at my desk. Oh, you're welcome.
This is the November 24th, 2025 Maumee Municipal Planning Commission meeting called to order. Roll, please.
Barris,
Yes.
Calverley,
Yes.
Dye,
Yes.
Rife,
Yes.
Motika,
Yes.
Urista.
Yes. The next item on the agenda is approval of the previous minutes from the October 27th meeting. Do I have any comments, corrections on the minutes? If not, I ask for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Mrs. Rife made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Cavallari? Roll, please.
Barris,
Abstain.
Calverley,
Yes.
Dye,
Yes.
Rife,
Yes.
Motika,
Yes.
Urista.
Yes. I see no old business. We'll move on to the new business. The first item under new business is the master plan presentation by Yard and Company. This is a public meeting, so I will ask the presenter to give us a overview of the plan, and then, being a public meeting, we will take any questions or comments, but anyone that does have comments, I would ask you to come up to the podium and give us your name and address. So I believe Mrs. Danielle Beltran will be doing the presentation. Just give us your address.
Okay, thank you. Hi, good evening. I'm Daniela Beltran with Yard and Company. Our office is located at 1542 Pleasant Street in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Thank you.
Great, and then, okay to dive in?
Yes.
Great. Hopefully some of you recognize me. I'm Daniela Beltran with Yard and Company. We started this community master plan process in early 2004. And so we now have it completed and ready for your review. I've got two documents I want to present to go through the overall process and how this came together. And then the document, the plan itself was sent around last week. Hopefully you had a chance to review that, but I will go through it kind of high level and then can flip to any specific places where there may be questions or desire for discussion. So I'll kind of get started with that, if that sounds good. Any time limit I should stick to, or just try to keep it concise? I can do that, under 4 hours. Sounds good.
When you see this, that means speed it up.
I appreciate that. And just one note too, I think for the online viewers, if there's any, the screen is not shown, but we'll have a link to this document. So just to recap, so this plan purpose, this is a master plan for Maumee, and it does several things. The point of it is to guide growth. So when we think ahead over the next 10 years, how might things change? This plan is really intended to help guide what do we want to see? How do we help make that happen? So there's, within this plan, a large vision for what the community, what it looks like, how it functions, who's part of that. And so hopefully you see that throughout this document. It also looks at the city as a whole. So there's projects when it comes to housing, transportation, really trying to influence kind of how improvement is happening across the community. But we do focus on specific areas. So there are parts of Maumee that are, we expect to see some changes in development and new community building efforts, and so those are called out through the plan. We were also intentional about trying to make this a process where a lot of people could weigh in and give input. So I am going to highlight the way that we did that and reached community members throughout this planning process. And hopefully, throughout this document that the attempt was to really build some excitement, really get us all in the right mindset of where are we heading as a community, and hopefully there's a lot of excitement for what this plan ultimately shows. So as a timeline, this is pulled in from that plan. So Yarding Company was hired. We interviewed at the very end of 2023 and really got started in early 2024. So we were interviewed as part of the interview process. Many of you were part of that are here in the audience. There was a plan advisory committee. And so they got to weigh in on who the team that was selected, and then they stayed involved throughout this planning effort. So we had organized the plan into 3 stages, and these are the headers: explore, test, build. So in spring 2024, that was where we did a lot of our gathering information, getting to understand what is going on in Maumee, and we launched our a public survey and asked a lot of high-level questions about where do we feel like things are heading, what's working, what's not, and we compiled everything into a summary of understanding. Any deliverables that are mentioned in the plan can be found in the appendix at the last page. So then, moving into summer of 2024, we started to think of, okay, how do we respond to what we're hearing through addressing opportunities, addressing challenges, and we attended the summer fair and really showcase some ideas early on of how do we really leverage opportunities for development, new programs, and so we got a lot of input throughout the summer with those initial recommendations. And then really set to work throughout the fall and winter to compile that into a draft document. So that was, there was an executive summary where we organized the key objectives and presented that to the Planning Commission at the time in September 2024. And really since then have been working with staff to make revisions and ultimately arrive at the revised plan that is before you. I do want to highlight the engagement, so I'm going to talk through the way that those were really key milestones throughout the planning process. Just overall, though, some high-level numbers. We had 830 contributions, and that was measured through people that participated in a survey, attended meetings, or came out to public events and signed in and interacted with us about this planning process. We also had a website that we maintained throughout the course of this project. It's called MaumeeMomentum.com. That is still a live website. We use that to share updates, post information, progress on the plan, and had a lot of visitors and viewers finding information there. So our first big milestone was in the June of 2024. This is where we launched our first survey, really with high-level questions. We kept that survey open into July. And I'll go into some of the highlights. So we found out through that survey and through a lot of conversations, what do people really love about Maumee, and heard a lot about the charming small town feel, walkable neighborhood, sense of community. We asked about what people wanted to see change, and we heard about things like safety when it comes to getting around town, running, walking, biking. There's a lot of opportunities for improvements from a trail standpoint, trying to convert vacant properties into functional spaces. Thinking about recreational and public spaces came up a lot. And then we also asked, what do you want to keep? And again, it came back to, we really want to make sure that as we grow, it still feels like Maumee. It still feels like a place where people can get to know each other. But we, hope to see, we already have really great events, and we want to keep that kind of, some of those core traits in the future. And so we really took that to heart. There was also a mapping component to this survey, and so people were actually able to drop a pin and point out where are you spending a lot of your time, the places that you love most. Again, the free time one. Where do you feel most comfortable? And this mainly correlated to civic spaces around the city. Where do you feel least comfortable? This was mostly tied to streets that are heavily trafficked. Where do you see opportunities for growth? And this was mainly both in some recreational spaces where there was some hope for investment, and also places where there's some vacancy and looking to see new development. So then the next big milestone we compiled, so from that insight, we trotted out those some draft recommendations, and that is what then we shared back in August. So this was when we attended that summer fair. We had these vertical boards out on the street and collected input on some of these initial ideas. And then this is kind of, I'll quickly cover some of what was talked about in that second phase of engagement. So we talked a lot about what is the personality of development that feels appropriate. And that can be a spectrum of more quiet, where it's predominantly residential and there's a lot of landscaping and courtyard, covered courtyards areas, into more of a humming type of development where there's some activity, mostly daytime. The third category is active, where it's more mixed use. There's things kind of throughout the entire day of things going on. And then buzzing is the one that's like really dynamic, kind of, I think, comparable to how Uptown is experienced when there's a lot of activities. And again, people were able to place where do those types of development feel appropriate. And so kind of the western side of the city, there's an interest in seeing over time those spaces become more quiet and humming types of development. And then in certain locations, especially throughout the core, more active and buzzing felt appropriate. And then we asked about overall, where should investment be prioritized? And the top 5 categories for investment was investing in our parks, trails, and riverfront network, encouraging more people-powered places. And we use that term to talk about entrepreneurship opportunities, trying to attract more small businesses and retain those that are here. Number 3 was incentivize livable porches and patios, and that really came up because out of the idea of how do we help encourage new development that enables people to easily talk to one another. Number 4 was build more formal and informal civic spaces, so having a nice mix of types of outdoor public spaces, and so we'll get into more on that. And then number 5 was support the building of third places. So a third place is something that's not your home, not your work, but that other thing in your community that you're spending a lot of time in. And I'll skip ahead. This is kind of just more specifics about what, within those categories, kind of how that investment looks. And I can circle back to these, but these do get covered pretty closely in that revised, the full master plan. And then just a couple more, additional updates. So again, I mentioned Planning Commission. We shared an overview of, and by that I mean the objectives and the outline of the plan was presented back in September. so just a little over a year ago. And then really since then, we've just been compiling all of what we learned into a full plan, and working with staff and representatives of that plan advisory committee to make some edits, tweaks, improvements, and then really arrive at this plan that we'll cover. So any process questions, or I can kind of go through what the plan, high-level contents of that. Okay, I'll switch over to that.
I think we're fine.
Okay. All right, so I'll kind of quickly go through just high level what's all in this plan. So this is the outline of it. We organized it in just a few categories. So there's a shorter version of what I just went through included here in the document. There's a vision statement. And then the 10-year plan is really the objectives. How do we achieve what we're talking about in the vision? And then we end on some additional reading and references for those that are really into this topic of community planning. And then some resources, references, and appendix at the very end. So this planning process overview is really just what I have shared with you. We do talk a little bit more about, on the research side, how we do a place audit and what we looked at to understand part of our exploration of the community. So there's information on what that entailed. Again, highlights of the community engagement process. And then the vision, I think, is maybe worth digging into a little bit, where I think where we landed based on everything we learned is that Maumee has a exciting potential to be more connected, prosperous, and sustainable. And it's really about being a place where neighbors can more easily build relationships with one another, and those relationships inspire engaged citizenship, and that engagement helps to shape the growth of Maumee. And just to reiterate, this plan is looking 10 years out. What do we hope to be, and then how do we get there? And so we discussed 3 core principles. The first was to be, I should say these are goals. And so the first goal is for Maumee to be the most livable city in the region. Number 2 is build neighborhoods, not just housing. And the third is change the city, but not our core values. So this 10-year plan digs into those goals through a series of objectives. So there's some further description related to those goals in here, sort of why this sense of livability matters. A lot of that goes back to quality of life, making sure development is not just about building as much as we can, but making sure it's appropriate, providing people with housing, aligning with demographics, sort of all of those things. And then this section, so there's 5 key objectives, and then within each objective, there's a few tasks that are really how do we get there. So the first objective is expanding the number of porches and patios. So this is a way of framing, okay, we know we need more residential development in the future. How do we make sure that that new residential development and commercial development is done in a way where it feels right for Maumee, and we kind of thought porches and patios are a really important way to make sure that it's creating that social network. And then the second objective is really about more places to gather. And so I'll go into some of the tasks there. The third objective is building and activating civic spaces. The fourth is establishing a premier park, river, and trail experience. And this really describes the potential for a loop that really connects you all across the city. And then the fifth one is growing new places out of old ones. So this is really highlighting the key areas where we think there's space for new development, and getting into some of the characteristics of what that could look like. So I'll just kind of go into the tasks and then circle back, I think, if there's any questions related to these. But within that idea of expanding porches and patios, kind of some of the key ways to do this is through zoning. So we talked about making sure that the development district and design review is really prioritizing storefronts, patios, courtyards in any kind of new development that comes through. And then number 2 is updating the zoning is kind of a typical process after a comp plan has been adopted. It's going to be necessary to review zoning, make sure that the zoning code is aligned with what's described in this plan and the vision overall.
Why don't we, each one of these objectives, why don't we just open it up one at a time?
Sure.
The porches and patios, does anyone have any questions or like anything further explained? Everybody's clear on that?
And I'll just
Okay.
mention the map highlights kind of a lot of the streets where either residential exists or can exist, along with commercial that has some of those patio spaces. So the maps correspond with these objectives as well.
Okay.
Great. And then we do have some pages here that go into more detail with each of those 2 tasks. So the next big objective was more places to gather. And so what we've identified here is wanting to establish where can we provide more seating and amenities in public spaces. A lot of times this is thinking about our office spaces and how do we make sure that there's ways that we're providing outdoor areas into spaces that people are already spending time. And then thinking more about those third places. So where, we've got pockets around the neighborhoods where, there's a store or a restaurant, somewhere where people can gather. And so the map is highlighting in these pink fuzzy areas kind of where there's over time, they're really based on when you add new residential, you want to make sure that there's that other type of commercial development that fits the scale of that area. So that's what these 3 tasks really support. The second task is the idea of partnering with schools to utilize those facilities as community gathering places. And this really came out of the school's strategic plan. That's something they're already working on, and we felt was really important to coordinate their work with city efforts. And then the third task here is, again, looking at zoning from the standpoint of third places. So right now, zoning is really good at restricting, if we have an area that's predominantly residential, it can be hard sometimes to introduce small-scale office or retail commercial. So this is requesting that as the zoning gets looked at, that there's more flexibility in being able to provide those types of uses in areas that are predominantly one type of use. And then this next set goes into further detail on those. Any questions with that?
Places to gather? And any questions or?
And I'll maybe just highlight each section. We provided an illustration that's meant to depict kind of one area that represents that topic. So this is, we kind of were inspired. We visited the Arrowhead Park, and there's an Epstein Park that exists kind of in the core of that office area. So that's one example where it's really ripe for some kind of outdoor area to really be a new type of space for those office users and help potentially encourage new tenants in the future. Okay, so then moving to the third objective, this one was all about building and activating civic spaces. So this is more about places where it's public facing and really meant to bring the community as a whole together. So we've got 5 objectives to help make that happen. So one is supporting and growing the Uptown's farmers market. So we learned a lot that the farmers market, as we were going through this last year, that was a high priority for MUBA to figure out a more routine farmers market. And I know throughout this year that that's been happening. So We do highlight that as a key thing to continue to grow and refine, kind of make sure that that's a core and ongoing offering for the city. The second one is about expanding entrepreneurship opportunities. And so here we talked a lot about, being able to make sure it's easy for, if you are a musician or have a business idea you're looking to test, that there's an easy process for being able to sell your service or your produce or your goods in future parks and plazas, and so that's described there. The third one is about growing capacity to activate public spaces. So this is more of like on the city staffing side, some ideas on how to make sure that there's a lot of partnerships with Moomba, the city, just to make sure that we're not only providing a space to come to, but that there's a plan for what the activities and programming looks like. Number 4 is supporting the creation of neighborhood-based pocket parks and community gardens. So this was a way to think about, not only are we trying to make sure that big spaces are active, but that even in neighborhood areas, we're investing in those types of smaller, more residential spaces where neighbors on a block are really going to take ownership of. And then the 5th one here is including civic spaces and planned developments. So just where there are opportunities for bigger developments, again, making sure that it's not all one thing. And if it's something that's going to have a lot of residential, commercial, it should really be encouraged to provide civic public uses within that. Any questions on those?
The lower right there, 37% farmers market, I can't read the whole thing.
Yeah,
What is that saying?
So this is just a data point from our second survey. We asked about types of civic spaces that community members most want to see. And so that was the top ranking thing for people, was a routine farmers market.
What were some of the other ones that?
I could try to find it. It might be in that other document. I can try to see. I think I glossed over it, but it was highlighted in outdoor disco, I heard. So this talked a little bit about, farmers market is this green line here. This one, Central Civic Square or Plaza in Uptown, is this orange line. That was a little over about 30% of the responses. In blue, this is neighborhood-based pocket parks and community gardens. This one is more seating along trails.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other?
Okay.
Okay, I'll keep moving. All right, so then our 4th objective, this was really digging into the trail network and how do we establish a premier park river trail experience. And so this is kind of a look at, we kind of re-envision Ford Street in the future as being, hopefully having a really great trail that is separated from traffic, hopefully helps to incentivize more commercial development. That's not just manufacturing, but kind of fits in with new residential development over time. So that's kind of the vision we have here. And then the map shows you what a potential loop could look like, where we're building off of the Riverfront Trail that's, had some really great investments. And so going up along Ford Street, over Dussel Drive, down Key Street. And this can look like different things when we talk about trail and bike walking facilities. Some of it could be on street, if that is what is appropriate, or separated like you saw in the drawing. And then here again, there's 5 tasks for how to make this happen. So one, we wanted to talk about the need to prioritize sidewalk expansion. So There, within this loop, and then some of the key segments that connect into it, that's where we would recommend where there are existing sidewalks to try to prioritize funding so that we can make sure they're wide enough to have people comfortably passing one another. And so that's one key task. Another one is to complete efforts to activate the riverfront, the actual waterway itself. And so there was discussions about trying to attract a canoe livery to help make it really easy to rent a kayak to get in and off of the river, and potentially as just a destination along the river, thinking about an amphitheater or something similar, so that we're really taking advantage of our riverfront access. The third task with this objective is formalizing this loop trail. And so that would, require some further study to understand from a street standpoint and right-of-way, what is the, how do we align funding opportunities with our street improvement program to try to build out this loop, this physical infrastructure. The fourth one is supporting investment in and connection to existing neighborhood parks. So we want to make sure that if you are building a trail, there's things off of it that you want to be able to hang out in. And so really taking inventory and making sure we're supporting our neighborhood parks to help with that. The fifth one is expanding walk and bike connections as part of street projects. So again, where, I think it's typical for, as we think about when a street becomes due for repaving, that's usually a really great opportunity to check back with this map and figure out, is there a way to make sure is there a way to provide that walk bike facility as part of that repavement? So that's one example of how to help get that built out. So any questions with that one?
Okay.
Great. Okay. And then this last one, so this is all about growing new places out of old ones. So this is kind of a, not tied to a specific site, but just trying to show new development. If we're prioritizing the build out of the trail and having civic spaces, this is kind of a picture of how new streets, new development can help take shape and really help have it fit Maumee as a context and be that, really have that communal sense of place with it. So the key areas that we think should be, where we expect development to occur over time, those are highlighted in this dark orange across the map. So you'll see, Uptown continues to have vacant parcels where infill development can occur. And that's pretty different from other parts of town. Like at Fallen Timbers, there's a lot of former farmland that is kind of being looked at from developers pretty routinely as potential residential and maybe some new commercial. And then there's other parts that are maybe not as thought of, or developers are not quite yet looking at, but we should be thinking about how does Arrowhead evolve over time. Same with the fairgrounds. That's been looked at as there's some environmental conditions to overcome, but it does provide the space needed for a new neighborhood in that area. And then kind of just some others along there. Of course, the north of Conant is there's a lot of outdated commercial centers that are naturally going to change over time, and trying to think of those outlots as a way to help spur that is one strategy that is talked about. So the key tasks that are talked about here is support the strengthening of existing neighborhood identities. So while we're looking at where new development can occur, we don't want to neglect or forget about our core strengths. And the existing neighborhoods of Maumee is definitely a key strength. And so we wanted to make sure that we're still supporting those neighborhoods, making sure that when, having a strong sense of place and understanding, the different types of neighborhoods that Maumee has really helps the overall community. And so we have some ideas for how that can occur. The second task is really thinking about, again, within the zoning code, there are some general standards, and there's some opportunity to align what that says and make sure it's fitting with this overall vision. The third task is the idea of a pre-approved plans program. And so this is something that is kind of emerging in the planning and development world, but it's not really a new concept. So a pre-approved plan catalog is almost like a Sears catalog where, if you recall or have seen it, it used to be like you could flip through this booklet and there was these buildings you could just order and have it sent and built in on a infill site or vacant site. So there are communities that are now doing a version of that where you are coming together and figuring out what's the type of development we really want to see and then drawing that out. And so for a developer looking to help contribute to MAMI, fill some, do some usually smaller scale projects, there's less barrier to building something if you are willing to use this pre-approved drawing that we've established. And so this would be a project of itself to create that booklet, but it is a way to really be proactive about development. The fourth task is updating the zoning ordinance to support growth. So that's kind of a general statement, but the task goes into more details, mainly, again, to highlight making sure that there's alignment with what the code says and some of these ideas around development. And then the fifth one is, again, really focusing on these 6 areas and describing characteristics and that personality of development that is suited to each one of those. I can kind of quickly scroll just so you can see the images of each of those. So these are some examples of the neighborhood identity, really playing that up. There's some further description about the zoning efforts that are needed to help alignment. These are some photo examples of some infill neighborhood development that feels really suitable to MAMI. And so the zoning can look at something like that and make sure that it is, making that a by right project. And then the 6 areas for growth, we have a page for each of these areas, really digging into short-term actions, what is the 10-year vision for that key area, and then some recommended land uses and preferred building types for each of those. And then there's some photos both of what this area looks like today and then some inspirational images of how types of development that would be appropriate in that area. So I'll quickly scroll through those. These images are for Uptown. This next page is for the Ford Greenway. So that's kind of Arrowhead plus some other areas where there's, heavily right now, it's heavily manufacturing and office uses. The fairgrounds, the former St. Luke's Hospital site. And then this set is future development for Fallen Timbers. And then this last one is North Conant. And then just, I guess I'll pause for any questions on that section.
Getting back to the overall map, the area in the far right, could you describe that area?
Yeah. So this one we didn't call out with too much description, but so this is over, it's a totally vacant open land. I think the city at one point had maybe had a sort of a preliminary plan for it that did not go through. So it's, as far as I know, there's no plans for it, but it is a large site across from a closed down strip center.
Right next to Parkway Plaza, is that the one?
Yep.
Yeah. Old Value City is right, yeah. So we don't have specific recommendations, but it kind of fits in line with some of the others that are shown as far as being, what it can accommodate. It's, I think the opportunities there are pretty similar to how we've described the fairgrounds.
Okay.
Great, and then that's the bulk of the plan. So this next page is really taking all of those, think of it as a to-do list and set of projects and just organizing it. How do we get started in the first year? What needs to happen in 2 to 4 years, 5 to 7, and then, what can be expected to be carried out over the course of 10 years. That's the bulk of it. The rest of this is just resources as far as like inspiration for neighborhood development. And then the supporting documents, I mentioned appendix, so that's what this section is. So any of the deliverables we did throughout the planning process can be, this is a live PDF, so you can click on it and it'll take you to that external document. Right, and that's the mommy plan.
Would anybody in the audience would like to come forward with questions, comments? No one?
So I can repeat, the question was, how will this be accessible? So we do have a project website that we've not updated. We can update that, but I would probably defer to city staff. So right now, this is a draft plan. So we're trying to collect input on any revisions that need to be made. So, right now the ball is in the court of planning commission members to weigh in on kind of what the process should be to make this an approved plan. So we'll defer to you all, I think, on that. But we're happy to make this document. I think we mentioned, and I had talked with staff about, for those that maybe could not attend the meeting, this version of the plan will be made available. I don't know exactly which page, but I think through the city website.
Mr. Leinbauer, it will be on the city website? There'll be a link on the city website.
Right, we should be able to add a link for that, for people to access it, so.
I have one question. I know you had mentioned earlier that there was going to be a grant, for these projects, or is this, if we have to pay for it?
So this plan, so there's no funding tied to these projects right now. So this is trying to trigger, okay, what types of grants do we need to go for to make these happen? So this is trying to just collect ideas, set a vision, and then that then triggers, okay, what do we need? So funding still has to be sought for all of these projects described.
Any other?
Yes, that's right. So Yard and Company, we are an urban design studio. I don't think I introduced kind of the type of company we are. We're primarily, so we do a lot of planning projects like this. We also do a lot of creative storytelling and videography. And so we have someone on our team that, as we were taking photos throughout this planning process, it occurred to us that Maumee is a really special place, and sort of being able to tell that story through a video itself would be really exciting. And so we did work with staff to create a video. So he did complete that. So we've sent it to staff for first review and are looking to get that finalized and have that ready, available at any moment.
So there will be a video coming out, and the staff is reviewing it.
Yeah, so staff has received it, so we just need the green light. I think they've looked at it and just need to confirm that it can be published, but that is something that's ready to go. There may be small tweaks to it. But we're excited to share that, and hopefully, we, would love to see. The idea that was talked about was, making it a special, a viewing event, at the theater, and trying to, hopefully time it up with the adoption of this plan, also kind of do a reveal of that video. And I'll mention, we just interviewed, a lot of community members got interviewed in that, so it'll be, it was a fun project for us to get to work on, and hopefully something that, fits well with what's going on in Maumee.
We'll stay tuned then.
Yes.
Anything else? Any other questions, comments?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'll mention with the opportunity with when you have these big areas and larger streets, trying to make it feel more like human scale, more comfortable. It is a challenge, but also a cool opportunity to rethink how those types of streets function. So that's just one example where it really there's a cool opportunity to make it pretty different from how that is experienced today.
Anybody else? I think we're ready to close the public hearing then.
I'll move to close the hearing.
We have a motion to close the public hearing. Mrs. Reif made the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Matika, second. Roll.
Barris,
Yes.
Calverley,
Yes.
Dye,
Yes.
Rife,
Yes.
Motika,
Yes.
Urista.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Linebauer, what are you requesting from the Plan Commission at this time?
Well, the charter provides that the Planning Commission shall adopt and recommend to the council a comprehensive general plan for the physical development of the municipality or redevelopment of any area or district therein, which shall include the location of public ways, property, bridges, schools, utilities, buildings, parks, playgrounds, recreation areas, and the reservation and acquisition of lands therefore. So I guess it's up to you if you're at that point that you're able to do that. You need more time to review the plan and make that recommendation to council. That's entirely up to the Planning Commission at this point.
I'd make a motion to recommend approval to council.
Mrs. Dye has a motion to recommend approval. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Barris, second. Is there any discussion before we call for the vote?
Well, I think it's important. I know they did surveys and that sort of thing over the last year, but there's also been a lot of other things going on in the community. So I support moving this on to council, but perhaps we have some council members in here. Perhaps this could be something that could be done over the course of multiple readings to allow time for community members to give their thoughts and ideas on if things needed change. And again, it's a master plan. This is not locking us into anything. This is just something the city can look at as it develops projects down the road, something for the Planning Commission to look at when it comes to sidewalks or changing the zoning code if we want, things like setbacks when it comes to front porches and that sort of thing. So this is not, we approve this and it's locked in and we start building more sidewalks. This is just something that we can look at as we develop the city. So.
And typically, these are redone every 10 years.
Right.
So it's something that will change in the future. It'll continue to change. And I think that our last one was done in like 50s, our last full master plan. So I think it's time.
I don't disagree that it's time to do an exercise like this, if you want to call it that. I do have some concerns about passing it right now, just because of the fact that we are seeing it, relatively short period of time here, and whether it needs more reflection and more public input, I don't know. But I know a lot of people have worked on it for a long time. But I do agree that the more community input we have, the better it will be.
So you are suggesting,
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't really have any concrete issues with it. I guess I just feel like maybe we're a little,
I would just say, I mean, I was involved I was on the community, yeah. And, I mean, we gave a lot of opportunities for the community to give input, and there honestly, we were hoping for a lot more input than we received. And so my concern is if we continue to keep giving opportunities and continue receiving very little input, we're just putting off something that we've put off for a really, really long time.
I kind of like Mr. Motika's idea that can it go to 3 readings to council? Do we recommend that, or is that automatic? Mrs. Dye, would you be comfortable with that?
So with the timing of that, would that be a change in council during that 3 readings? So how does that work?
I think that's part of the concern of everything right now. It's so fluid that it's,
I don't think the readings would start over just because there's new people on council. Like,
Okay.
if the current council has 1 reading and then the new council's sworn in, if that's when their next meeting would be, then I think that would then be the 2nd reading. But that would also, I think, give the city time to get it posted online and at least get a link out there so that people can read through and review the document that we have, the 110 pages and citations and.
Or-
Well, thought is, like, during the first couple of years before they're on, but so, and then coming on.
Are you comfortable with changing your motion to?
Isn't
for
it still
3
the same
readings?
motion? Well, it's still the same motion, right? Okay.
just.
Yeah.
whether
Yeah,
you wanna
I don't
add
think
that-
we have to put a special caveat to it.
Yeah.
I think council would generally have 3 readings unless it's, passed as an emergency, but there's no reason that this would be passed as an emergency.
Well, and this slows down no progress, correct? Multiple meetings.
Pardon?
It won't slow down any progress of this, so, I mean, why not meet again? I agree with that.
Do you agree with the 3 readings?
Correct, yes.
Any
So,
other-
are you saying should change it to include that? I thought it would naturally include that. Okay. To include 3 readings.
Mrs. Dye has recommended that her motion be added, that it go to council for 3 readings.
I will second that motion with the recommendation from the planning commission that council review the master plan or over the course of 3 readings to allow for community input.
Everybody clear?
Yep.
Roll, please.
Barris,
Yes.
Calverley,
Yes.
Dye,
Yes.
Rife,
Yes,
Motika,
Yes.
Arista.
Yes. Motion carried. Mrs. Beltran, thank you for your presentation, for your hard work. Okay, the next 2 items deal with ordinances pertaining to data centers. And I will open up the public meeting. This requires a public meeting. And I will ask the administration, in the name of Mr. Linebauer, to give us the staff's opinion, recommendation.
Good evening. There's, the zoning for this particular district has been in place, was adopted in 2010, and included data centers. And so the question is, modifying at this point in time based on people's plans. There is a scheduled visit to New Albany scheduled for December 17th, where the commission members would be welcome to attend or go to New Albany and view their data center there. Council members would also be invited to go along to view what they have in place there. And basically, the recommendation would be to, gather up as much information as you can before you make a change, to the zoning code of this nature, and allow people to show up for or against data centers, and what provision should be in place for them if they are going to be allowed in a zoning district, if you're going to revamp the code as to those. There's always obviously projects that are going to come up in a zoning district that are not going to be favored by certain people. So it's just a more measured approach versus a rush to judgment as to what we should do with this. So that would be at least my recommendation at this point in time, and then leave it up to the commission to make that determination.
Sorry, I guess I was not real clear. You're recommending that we delay this?
Yeah, wait as to making a decision on this until you get more information on, like I said, even do the visit to New Albany and try to get information as to how they're set up and, some of the information that's out there to make sure you have the correct information about data centers. I'm not an expert on them. There's nothing in the works at this point in time, but, not to cut out projects that might provide funding one way or another to the schools, to the city, without doing a deeper look into it.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I
Yeah.
was.
Sure.
I'll be honest, I too had some concerns with kind of rushing through this thing. Or the law director's done a yeoman's job of doing a lot of different jobs lately. But it's, but it seems like maybe as we, move through this, we've just lost our mayor too, that maybe we need to have some other people in place to give us some additional guidance on, where this should go. I wouldn't mind tabling it.
I think it's a good idea to tour a facility that's already it is already operating, right? And also, the new council and the present council would probably be interested, ultimately, because they're going to have to vote on it.
Correct. It's my understanding there should be room to get some of the new council people down there too, so they can, obviously they would have to vote on any ultimate zoning change too. And as indicated by Commissioner Reif, that there is a new administration coming forward. We don't have an administrator per se right now. There's going to be a new mayor, whole different council makeup, and not much direction, as to where all this should go at this point.
So I've been doing a lot of research on this ever since Adam suggested looking into this, and my concern is that if you wait, then how do you make changes after it's gone too far? So I would be more on the side of making it a conditional use where we'd have to take more steps for it to be allowed than to just allow it by right because it's within this zoning district. I think making it have to go through a few more hoops is probably good when it's a new thing that most cities don't understand how it's going to affect them. So why would we make it easy, I guess, is my question. I was reading through it, and my thought was that it would be, I'd like to see something like the supplemental regulations under Title III, like that we have for, what do we have? So like for tobacco and vape stores where there are other regulations that you have to meet. I would like to see more about data centers within it than just moving it to a conditional use. I think there are a lot of cities right now that are trying to figure out, they have so many data centers coming in, they don't know what to do, they don't know how to stop it, and it uses a lot of electricity, it uses a lot of water. A lot of times it increases electricity costs for residents in the area because it uses so much electricity, and they don't know how to pass out that cost beside increasing rates for everyone. I think it's really important that we, if there are talks, which I've been hearing, there are talks about data center coming in, we need to do our due diligence and make sure that we're not just letting it go forward.
Had a couple hands raised.
Well, before we get to that, who invited us? Who invited us to go look at this data center in New Albany? I'd be curious to know that.
The county, Lucas County.
Oh, okay, so it's part of Lucas County
Right.
development.
Right.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. McMahon.
My name is Brian McMahon. I have a company called Danbury National. We're located 624 West South Boundary in Perrysburg. I probably have a history of at least 45 years in the real estate you're talking about tonight. It goes way back many years ago when some of you are too young to remember that Don Scholes assembled a huge amount of land on your western border to develop an absolutely beautiful new town, but ran into some financial issues, and as a result of that, he wasn't able to go forward with that program. This council and the new council are probably confronted with the biggest challenges that the city of Maumee has ever had. And the reason I say that is just the change in leadership that's taken place in a relatively short period of time. The other thing that's happened is you have some major stakeholders that would probably like to participate in talking to you about what their plans are. One of them is sitting behind me, Zach Isaac, who probably, with all the vacant land in Fallen Timbers, is your single largest property owner, I believe, in Maumee. And the good thing about that is it makes it much easier to work with a small group of people versus a large group of people who own the real estate. The other thing that's happened is Steve Taylor acquired all of the vacant land in Arrowhead Park that was previously owned by ProMedica, and he's about to acquire all the vacant land that Mercy Hospital owns. So between those two people, you'll have a significant amount of the land that is earmarked, I think, for eventual development. And of course, there's potentially the Steiner Group that is in contract, as you all know, for the Fallen Timber Center that is desperately in need of being repurposed. And Zach and I had an occasion to meet with him last week, and he has some very exciting plans. Now let's speak to the data center for a moment. I am not an expert, but I was fortunate to participate in the Middleton Township data center site. And I learned something about data centers probably every day, and there's no question they are a big challenge for communities. But there's probably no development that I can contemplate or know of that is going to have potentially the greatest financial impact on this community in the event that you decide to do one. The technology is evolving very quickly. You mentioned electric power. The Middleton Township site very soon will be announcing that there's a major company, and a multi-billion-dollar company, that is going to build a gas-fired, powered turbine facility that will produce, if not all, but almost all of the power they're going to need, because the data centers know that they've got an even bigger challenge, and that is the grid is not designed to accommodate data centers. So they can't survive, they can't function unless they come up with alternate sources of energy, and they know that, and you're going to learn that. If you take the time to go to Albany, and I believe the host will be the Regional Growth Partnership. That's the people who are trying to arrange the bus tour. You'll see a cluster of data centers. It's interesting how they've all clustered in close proximity to each other. You get a chance to meet with some of the top data center developers in the country. I think it would be to your best interest to come with your questions and learn and come back and share with the people who put you in office what you've learned, because there is a tremendous amount of misinformation out there. You know, some people claim that they're going to suck up all the groundwater. They're not using the groundwater. They can't afford to use the groundwater, because if the aquifers run dry, the data center's out of business. So what they've done, what I'm learning, is they've come up with a closed-circuit, high-tech glycol antifreeze, which was, you know, previously they were going to cool these data centers with water, and they were going to use, and the older data centers did use, huge amounts of water. They're not doing that with the new data centers. So I would strongly encourage you to take advantage of the tour of these data centers, and then allow us to come back, because I'm sure there's going to be a group that's very organized, that's very opposed. What I've learned about much of the information they put out on the internet, it's old data, no pun intended. It's not the current technology that you'll learn about when you make the tour. So if you can be just a little patient, what this could do is it could provide you with a huge infusion of money. And why do I say that? They don't generate thousands of jobs, but the jobs they do generate during construction, and depending upon the size of the site, the one in Middleton Township, they anticipate construction workers will be on site for 7 to 10 years. There will be anywhere between 1,500 and 1,700 construction workers on that site during that period of time, all of which would be subject to an income tax in your community. But when it's completed, these facilities are not valued in the millions of dollars. They're valued in the billions of dollars. And I think a great deal of the community of Maumee. I think that you have some tremendous exciting potentials ahead of you. I think Arrowhead Park is going to get re-energized. It's already getting re-energized. You're seeing some dirt move in Arrowhead Park. You got a new interchange, which is going to create even greater interest in Arrowhead Park. So just be a little patient, be a little more due diligence, and then we'll come back and we'll try to have a conversation where you'll learn more about the new technology, and maybe we'll be able to persuade some of the people who are totally, completely, fervently opposed to data centers that maybe they'll listen to what you are learning in that trip, and maybe they'll discover that maybe at the end of the day, there is room in your community for a data center, because financially, you need a big infusion of money. You can't undertake the debt that you now have, especially the one as it pertains to the sewage issue. This could help alleviate a lot of that, and it could also, if you allocate the funds, because you'll have control of the funds that come to the city, you can offset the people who are not happy about all the inspection fees they're having to contend with. You could allocate money to take care of those too, because you're talking about a significant amount of money. There's nothing that I have experienced in my lifetime that generates the kind of revenues to communities that data center does. That's why so many communities have overcome the opposition from some of the residents and have gone forward with it, because at the end of the day, what you have to do, and I'm not telling you this, I'm just my opinion, you have to do what is to the best interest of everybody in the community, not just a small group of people who are opposed for reasons that I think you'll discover don't have validity.
Come on forward. Name?
Hi, I'm Chelsea Ziss. I'm at 928 West Wayne, just your resident public nuisance. I'm a little bit confused here. The legislation that we're talking about today is not a moratorium or a ban on data centers, right? It's literally just moving it from a permitted use to a conditional use.
Yes.
Is that correct? So the only difference in the legislation that is being proposed tonight is taking it from being permitted without going through a public hearing process to that it would have to go before the Planning Commission for a public hearing process.
Can you answer that,
Yes.
Mr. Leinbauer?
It would change it to conditional use and then follow the current conditional use guidelines, which aren't necessarily suited to address all the issues that might be there for a data center. I mean, they're just very general at this point.
Right, so there are a lot of things that need to be considered. So as opposed to it just being a permitted use that wouldn't have to go through that consideration, wouldn't moving it to a conditional use give you the extra time to come up with the legislation and the understanding, the due diligence and the visits in between that?
Being a special use, we do have the opportunity to put certain restrictions,
Right.
but I think we want to know what restrictions would work, or,
But as it
And-
stands
and-
right now, there are no restrictions.
And no one's saying we should proceed with it right now.
I'm sorry?
No one's saying we should proceed with it right now. We're asking for more time.
For more time to keep it as a permitted use with no restrictions.
There's nothing on it right now, is my understanding.
No,
it's in
there
there
is.
as
It is a permitted-
permitted use.
Well, isn't that what we're asking for, is so that we can find out what limitations we can put on it? Similar to what we did with, or what we're trying to do with tobacco use and things like that?
under
No.
C4 zoning, it is allowed,
Okay.
Yeah, this.
but
it wouldn't-
it's proposed to not allow it.
Not allowed by right.
Just that it would have to have a public hearing first.
Well, I think it's a little bit more than that.
I mean, yes, there would be, it's a conditional use, you would have to put conditions on it, but the difference is, as it stands right now, is could something be signed and it go into effect without going before you or the council or the public, versus a conditional use, which means it would have to go before the planning commission and or the council. So it's not a ban, it's not a prevention, it's not saying a blanket moratorium. It's giving the time that you need to figure out this due diligence. Because if you don't change it now or don't recommend it to council now, essentially what you're doing is saying, we don't need to do any due diligence. We're going to keep it as a permitted use that does not need any further review. Changing it to a conditional use will give you the time that you need to do that due diligence. At no point is right now is anybody suggesting a blanket ban or moratorium. This is just moving literally 3 words in the code from one section to another. That's all I have.
I just want to make sure I understand correctly, okay? So there's another thing called site plan approval, is there not? The idea that there will be no public hearing if a data center is proposed in your community just because the zoning is there doesn't negate the fact that you still have to submit a site plan. And the site plan has to go into great detail. You do not?
There are a lot of development agreements that happen where there is no site plan approval, or they get to,
How did that happen? Well, correct, yeah. But that person's not here anymore.
but the ordinances have not changed.
But don't you still require, maybe I don't understand, don't you still require that a site plan be submitted?
Ms.
Not
Weinbach,
necessarily.
could you address that, please?
Yeah, there would still be a required site plan that would have to meet the MAMI standards that are set forth for any construction in that district, architectural standards, et cetera, that are in the code. But it would be an administrative review process at that point. And if it was turned down administratively, there's an appeal process to the planning commission.
Right, so it wouldn't come to the planning commission most likely.
Not initially, unless there was an objection to the process proposed administratively.
Which has never occurred since I've been on.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Has it-
relatively new procedures. So I
Right.
think that's part of it, is that was something that came in pretty recently, when we weren't meeting very often. As you
Mhm.
recall, there were times when we didn't meet. I think that's kind of cured now, but
Right.
But I've been on for a year, and we've really only seen multifamily residential.
Yes.
I'm not sure there's been a lot of big commercial.
Is that because there hasn't been a whole lot of other development that's been proposed in your?
I wouldn't say so, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Poppelmeyer, you've had your hand up the longest, so go ahead. Give us your name.
I state your name. No, so Dave Peppelmeyer, 318 Kingsbury. Great information. Thank you. But I will take it one step further when it comes to the public. I frequent social media a lot. There's going to be talk at this meeting tonight or tomorrow morning, all over social media. Okay. This is a very hot button topic in Maumee, in the Anthony Wayne area, Oregon. So it's not just Maumee. This is Greater Toledo, Lucas County. So if there is any serious consideration of a data center, the boogeyman name right now, this needs to go full sewer roundtable discussions like we had last year. If this tries to get forced or quietly approved, you will have the reaction that we had with the sewer conveyance ordinance bombshell last summer. So I would highly suggest complete transparency with the people of Maumee. Give pros and cons. This may be great. I don't know. But we need to have a lot of community buy-in and transparency in the meetings so everybody knows what's going on, what the facts are, and what the myths are. Just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Another hand, come forward, please. Name?
Hi, I'm Margot Puffenberger, 318 West Harrison Street. So I'm kind of gonna just repeat in my own way what Chelsea said. And to piggyback on what Dave said, you're not gonna get any of that process if you don't do something. Right now, anyone can just go in and we can have a data center, poof. No time for tours, no time for research, no time for planning commission input. It can just happen. There's nothing wrong with a moratorium. You could make the moratorium 30 days. You can make the moratorium 2 weeks. You can make the moratorium 60 days, 180 days. All that does is say, no one can go forward with things for this amount of time. It doesn't say you can't ever do it again. It just gives the amount of time for people to do their due diligence, to do the research, take the tours, find out more information. I was just thinking the other day about how, you know, we hear it's going to be such a financial benefit. But I still don't have the details on what that financial benefit is. How does that financial benefit happen? And I hear about the construction jobs, but that's super short term. There's no long-term income tax benefit, not none, but very little. There's not a whole lot of workers at the site. So what is that long-term benefit? My concerns always with technology like this is usually you're planning it, as you're planning it, it's already outdated. You're building it, as you're building it, that stuff's already outdated because technology, you know, it changes so quickly. I mean, that's here nor there, but we need to talk about the long-term implications, what the financial benefits are, what the water issues might be. I've read an article recently, they did talk about antifreeze. Well, that's a chemical. How do we feel about that? What happens with that? How is that handled? So like a moratorium or this kind of change into what conditional use is, that it just gives you more time to look at all those things. Right now, you have no time. They could do it tomorrow if they wanted to. And there's no time to do all that due diligence. So essentially, whether you do what is proposed tonight or someone decides to do a moratorium, that's just giving you time to figure things out. It's not saying, nope, it's not allowed. Thanks.
We don't have the power to install a moratorium. It's only council does, right? I mean, I
Could we recommend
appreciate your
one?
comment. Mr. Linebaugh.
Yes. Philip Leinbach, 209 West Broadway. I think John and Margot may be able to help me, but just maybe a fact. I believe this ordinance was updated, not in, last in 2010, but in 2023, in which data processing centers was added. Well, the most recent update indicated 2023, and I distinctly remember meeting with Patrick at one point to talk about data centers. I might be wrong that we did not pass that, but I don't actually have those revisions. Oops, I left my phone. If you look on the website that has all our ordinances online, it shows that it was most recently amended January of 2023.
No, those other updates, but it didn't add data centers at that point. Data centers were added in.
Well, I'll defer to Mr. Lambauer at this point, but I distinctly remember discussions with Dr. Birch at the time about data processing centers because it was definitely being discussed. And, as a resident of Maumee, I am very concerned that there are no harms incurred by our residents as a result of a data center. And like it's been said, I don't know enough about them. I've heard podcasters who are tech, billionaires talking about data centers, and they say the United States, from a national security perspective, needs data centers. We have to have them. That means the federal government and even our state governments should be involved in the regulation of what's happening. But unfortunately, it's like a little free-for-all. Everybody's trying to get data centers. And I think we do, like Mr. Peppelmeyer said, we owe it to our residents to really be transparent with this and recognize the pros and the cons. I've been a firm believer that most people, when presented with the facts and reasoned arguments, they'll at least acknowledge that, okay, it's not I've used this phrase before, data centers are not an unmitigated evil that we cannot have, in our backyard. I don't think there are probably some people who believe that, and that's the small minority that maybe is talked about that just say, no, never, 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 never. But I think most people, they want to have a better quality of life. They want to have their cost of living not go crazy. And having a lot more information about what these would do is the best way to go. And I think that means we have to put the brakes on. If there are no brakes right now, and again, I'm quoting a lot of people, Margot's comment about a moratorium, and I'm not saying the moratorium, but nothing is forever. But for right now, we need to act, I think, to prevent a runaway train from harming our residents.
Zach Isaac, 2580 Underhill, and that's in Ottawa Hills. We're the sellers of the land out there, folks. There's no secret there. But I want to, dispel a couple things that I think are rumoring around the room tonight. There's no immediate rush that we're going to sell this land and close it, and these people are going to come in and do something. There's a lot of due diligence they have to do first, number one. Number two, there's a lot of components that have to be a part of it. And I would just ask, I'm not saying you shouldn't do a conditional use, but I'm saying give yourself time. Hopefully you can take the time and come down to New Albany on the trip. They have the economic development director down there has a process, a program. They have a video they want you to see. And they tour you to show you actual data centers. There's multiple ones down there in New Albany, which, as you all know, is a very, very high-end residential district, as well as commercial district. I would encourage you to wait, because I promise you this thing is not going to get done in the next 30 to 60 days. There's other conditions that have to get it done as well. They have to get a approval, they have to file a report that only First Energy can produce, and that's a 4 to 6 month process. It's a little load study, what they call it. And so this is not going to happen quickly, guys. And I encourage you to just give yourself a little bit of time to go down there, educate yourself a little better, and then see. Site plan's got to be there. And these are all our land that we have out there is in the CM district, which has all the requirements of Arrowhead Park. We've got landscaping, you've got height, you've got material, you've got setbacks, you've got densities. You've got Heights again. I mean, CM zoning is part of all of Fallen Timbers, and that's why when General Growth built it, it was a $110 million project. I'm embarrassed the way it is today. And our hope and goal is that the boys from Columbus will bring it back to a $110 million investment and really do it right. We have other opportunities residentially out there at this point, but the CM zoning really is a real fail-safe for the community that's been around for about 50 years when Ed Epstein did Arrowhead Park. And all that land, when it was annexed into Maumee, was part of CM zoning. And even the land we recently annexed in from the township became CM zoning. So I'm not saying not to do conditional use, but let's give it some time, and because I assure you nothing's going to happen in the next 60, 90 days, and I would just encourage you to be a little more, I guess, adept at the pros and cons of the potential project that could or could not come through. If I answer any questions, I'll be happy to.
Is this potential project, does it entirely sit within the Maumee, city of Maumee, or is it going to?
All of our land is in the city of Maumee.
Okay.
With it, you know, it's all west of Fallen Timbers Lane.
And is this the land that there was initially some idea of building houses?
That's correct.
And that's something that I believe we approved a site plan for that area.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yep.
And we've identified this area in the master plan we just reviewed as ideally somewhere where residential could go. And I'm the one that proposed the language to Alan to make this a conditional use. I'm not opposed to data centers. I'm not a proponent of data centers. I need more time to make a decision. And I'm fully aware, I'm from Van Wert, Ohio, where when they put in a bunch of windmills, I mean, I'm fully aware of the misinformation that gets spread around in the videos of windmills on fire in foreign countries. So, you know, I don't buy into a lot of that. But for me, I don't see the downside to making this a conditional use because it would subject it to a public hearing in front of us. And I'm not an engineer, I'm a lawyer, but I like it when additional contractors or engineers can have eyes on something like this. I don't think a project of this size, it would really slow it down. I mean, realistically, a project of this size is going to request, I've never heard of a data center not wanting a tax abatement, and that would need to be approved by council. So that's another step that would need to be undertaken. But I mean, we're looking at, in this zoning area, as, let me just pull this up, things that we've made conditional uses in this area: bus shelters, electric and telephone towers, gas regulators and meter stations, indoor commercial recreational facilities, vending machines in an outdoor location. I sort of feel like a project the size of a data center should be subject to a conditional use, just for the reason that it would be a public hearing that community could weigh in. Like I said, it's not, I wouldn't say, if we had the power to support a moratorium, I wouldn't do that. I'm not outright opposed to it. But that's just the reasoning why I thought this should be something, because of the massive scale of the project and, you know, the utilities involved and the potential amount of money that could or could not come into the city. I just personally don't see a downside to making it a conditional use and then just subjecting it to a hearing in front of the Planning Commission if it were to come to fruition.
So you're wanting to move forward, or are you wanting to delay it?
I'm going to motion or move to change the language and make data centers a conditional use. But if we have additional public comments, I mean, now's the time.
I think
Again, if we want more time to gather more information, we still have that. If this isn't a conditional use, theoretically, it could be, it wouldn't happen, but.
I think we're hearing a lot of people that want to make it more public and let more people comment on it.
And I think that's appropriate too. I wish we had some language that accompanied it that applied to data centers, that we knew what conditions, you know, maybe would apply here. We're kind of sticking it in with applying the same thing as we applied to bus shelters. I think that's a little problematic. I think this is a little bit rushed and a little bit of a way of.
So What I was suggesting, I think we should make it a conditional use, but then I think there needs to be further language added that goes into more of what we should be looking at. So when I talked about like the vape stores and tobacco, like there's an additional section in the code that talks about those. And I just think there's so much unknown. We need more time to really figure out, and we have to, this is the way we can kind of slow things down right now. And there are a lot of people really upset about everything going on in Maumee, and if we allow this to just happen, I think that would be really bad.
I would agree.
I agree.
All right, can I entertain a motion to delay? Okay, I do have to close the public meeting, though. Okay. Hurry up, and then we'll close the public meeting.
Load study, because you said.
Name and address, please.
Diana Schwind, 310 East Broadway.
Name?
Diana Schwind.
Ashwood?
Diana Schwind.
Diana Schwind, okay.
The load study for the Edison that they're waiting on, if that comes back and there's not enough capacity on the grid, then they're just going to build a gas-fired power plant. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, because that was mentioned, if the grid wasn't sufficient, that they would probably build a peaker plant out there, and then that would maybe allow for more data centers. So just heads up.
No, that's not what I said. But I will tell you what I do understand from these folks that we have talked to is their primary power will not be from the grid. They will have a gas-fired power plant out there. The grid would only be used for excess power. And there's gas lines. Northwest Ohio is very blessed by having tremendous amounts of natural gas lines. And that's why we're a, I guess, coveted area like New Albany is. We have lots of gas lines in Northwest Ohio, big ones. And that's what attracts people, because they know the grid cannot support data center needs. And so a vast majority, and I can't tell you the details, but I do know that the people that we have talked to the person, most of their power will come from a gas-fired plant that is gas-fed and not from the grid, because the grid couldn't do it if it wanted to. And, it comes down to the grid also, I think is a misnomer there. Those grids are multi-state grids. No matter what we do or don't do here is not going to really impact short-term or long-term whether rates go up, because they're multi-state grids, and what happens in Maumee, Ohio is not going to impact a multi-state grid. Having said that, I really like the idea, though, that they're not using the grid. That's not their primary source of power. They've told us it'll be a gas-fired power plant on the project or nearby.
Thank you. Okay, we need to close the public meeting, hearing. Can I have a motion?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Mrs. Reif made a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Mr. Calvary, second. Roll.
Barris.
Yes.
Calverley.
Yes.
Dye.
Yes.
Rife.
Yes.
Motika.
Yes.
Arista.
Yes. Okay, can I entertain a motion to delay these two ordinances?
No. I thought we were all in agreement of going forward with a conditional use.
Yeah, I would move to amend the language of section 1125.10 C4 Office Laboratory and Research District to remove data processing centers as a permitted use and to move that language as a conditional use.
And I'll second that.
And I guess I just want to comment before we vote that, the administration is not recommending it. I think that, going and kind of rushing this through becomes, I don't know. I think without some companion language to say what conditions would be considered is a mistake. To just say it's a conditional use and have that void.
I mean, we have the conditional use language
Right.
in the,
But it doesn't apply very well.
I mean, we have to apply it to anything we would use for a conditional use.
But sometimes we've had companion language for specific types of things that we have a conditional use for that we lack. It would, it would have been helpful to have that with us today, too.
I guess I would agree with Joan, Mrs. Rife,
Well, when it,
that we delay it.
looking at the standards we would use for if we were to approve a conditional use, is it a project that would be in accordance with the general or specific objectives of the master plan? Would it be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained in such a manner to be harmonious with the existing or intended character of the immediate vicinity, and would not change the essential character of the same area? Would not be detrimental to existing or future neighboring uses? I think that's a large consideration that we would take when it comes to a data center. Would be served adequately by essential public infrastructure, facilities, and services, or provides at the applicant's expense for the construction of additional public infrastructure. I think these are things that we would definitely consider when it comes to a data center. And if the administration thinks there should be language changes to conditional use, like the gentleman said, this is not a project that's going to happen quickly. We can change that language as well so that it's teed up for if or when a data center would seek conditional use.
Yeah, it becomes a little bit of a spot zoning thing where we're, trying to chase that ball. But I don't want to beat it into the ground. I just think we're being a little bit hasty, and we don't have a complete package of what we would do if there was an application. So for that reason, I'd prefer to delay. Yes.
Gentlemen?
No problem. I agree with conditional use.
All right, Mrs.
Should we take
I
the
think
roll?
take a roll.
Di, do you want to, what, I need a
I think
motion.
there was a motion and a second.
Adam made a motion and I seconded.
Could you read back the motion?
He moved to change the language and make the data center conditional use, and I didn't get all the details of the section.
Amend section 1125.10 of the Maumee Codified Ordinances to remove data processing centers from permitted use and to place that language as a conditional use.
So we're just referring to the first ordinance.
Yes.
Or-
This would be ordinance 036-2025.
Everybody clear on the motion? Did we have a second? Mrs. Di made the second.
Barris,
Yes.
Calverley,
Yes.
Dye,
Yes.
Rife,
No.
Watika,
Yes.
Arista.
No. Motion's carried. Okay, do we want to get into the next ordinance? Gotta find it. This is ordinance 037-2025. Mr. Linebaugh, can you highlight it?
Yes, I can. So this one is just some cleanup language, really, to also, because of CM districts, under permitted uses, would say any primary use permitted in the C2 and C4 commercial districts, any primary use permitted in the M1 controlled industrial district, and then, so those changes are just to say primary use, and then in the conditional uses listed within the C2, C4, and M1 districts, if not otherwise permitted, may be permitted under the procedure contained in Chapter 1134. So this would just make it consistent with the other change that you're making to the C4 conditional use to show that CM would also be conditional use.
Everybody clear on that? Can I entertain a motion?
I just have a question. So is the purpose of this just to make it so data centers are allowable within the CM district? Well, with a conditional use permit?
Right, the way it was worded before, it didn't say C4 and M1 within that. So it just said conditional uses listed within the C2 district. So you had to add in C4 and I think just add in the C4 and M1 districts if not otherwise permitted. Because the way it was worded before, it didn't address conditional uses for CM zoning actually for that district. So yes, it would become a conditional use then for data centers.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 037-2025, an ordinance amending section 1125.11 of the Maumee Codified Ordinances.
I have a motion by Mr. Matika. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Barris, second. Roll.
Barris?
Yes.
Calverley?
Yes.
Dye?
Yes.
Wright?
No.
Motika?
Yes.
Arista?
No. Motion carried. This will be going to council the next meeting.
Correct. We should be able to get it on the agenda for the next meeting, which would be December 1st.
And it'll be 3 readings.
Correct.
Okay, looking at the time, do we want to proceed to the last item or wait till next meeting?
Will we have a meeting in December? I mean, is there? Right. Is this the language that was provided by the group that we spoke with at last meeting?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's significantly different.
I went through it. Jacob Barnes is here. He can describe that he went through that proposals from Soul Smart and made it part of the code. So if Jacob wants to address
Do you
that.
think we need more time?
I had requested that you send this to Soul Smart before giving it to us because I wanted to have their feedback based on the recommendations that they had given. So I was just wondering, there were a lot of things within it that when they gave the report, where we aligned with things that Soul Smart recommended, and these changes would make it so that we no longer align with their recommendations. There are quite a few things within it where there's a change and they specifically say, don't put this in the code because of this, this, and this, and this. And there are quite a few sections in here that were directly against the recommendations.
So you're wanting to delay it?
I would like it to be sent to Soul Smart for them to review, as I'd requested at the last meeting.
Mr. Linebaugh, any response to that?
And we can send it up to Soul Smart for their review. That's their commission's wishes.
Did you, sorry, Alan, did you say someone was here to comment on these changes?
We have a part-time zoning administrator that's here today, and he worked on developing this, so I think he looked at all the Soul Smart suggestions, but I'm not aware that we did send it to Soul Smart, so we can do that.
Would he be available to attend
Sure.
the next meeting?
Yeah.
We would discuss this? Okay.
Right. I think it would be the last week in December, so.
22nd.
We traditionally don't have that meeting.
It would be the 22nd, I guess.
Yeah, I would rather not meet
Oh, I mean, I would
in December.
support tabling this until a January meeting. I'm assuming there's probably not a lot of solar panels that are getting installed in the December and January, but I don't know. But I would be fine tabling this for our next meeting.
I'm fine with that, too.
We have a, we need a motion? Can I have a motion to delay this ordinance until the next regular scheduled meeting, which will be in January?
Excuse me, I'll so move.
Mrs. Reif made the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Matika second. Roll.
Barris,
Yes.
Calverley,
Yes.
Dye,
Yes.
Rife,
Yes.
Motika,
Yes.
Arista.
Yes. Mr. Linebauer, anything else?
I have nothing further, so.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
I would like to take a second to congratulate Mr. Motika on becoming a new school board member.
Thank you.
I was glad.
I was running unopposed, so that made it. That's why you didn't see a lot of signs around town. Yeah.
Anything else before we adjourn? Could I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Mr. Maris? Mr. Calvary, are you seconding it?
A second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We're adjourned.